2:30 practice for Arkansas football this afternoon. Same tomorrow, scrimmage Saturday. Pads. Helmets go along with it, of course. Bob Holt is with us here from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Esteemed sports writer, good friend of the show. Bob, how's your Thursday going today?
It's going fine. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Escaping the heat as best as possible. Big topic on the show yesterday was about Arkansas's ability to establish a run game and the importance of finding the second running back behind Traylon Smith for this team. Would you put that as well, let me couch this differently. Is there a more important position battle than that one right now that you can come up with at the top of your head offensively?
No, not offensively, and really, I think it was the first day we talked to Sam Pittman. Maybe it was the second, but he got asked about, or maybe he brought it up himself, but he just said, whoever was that number 2 running back, that would be a pretty big storyline. I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but Traylon Smith, he established himself really last season when Rakeem Boyd got hurt. Smith really took over and was their best back. Not that Boyd was playing badly when he was healthy, but Smith just really played well, and so that was a good thing for Arkansas. We already knew coming into the season who the top guy was going to be, but in the SEC you really need 2, 3, maybe 4 backs, depending on everybody's health. But you can't get by with one running back of the SEC and probably most conferences. So that is very important. I just have a number 2 guy that have several guys you feel good about.
And it's understood, of course, that KJ Jefferson is going to do a lot of running for this team this year as well. You think there'd be any chance at all that it's Jefferson that ends up as maybe the best running back on this team as a quarterback? I know Traylon. I mean, I like Traylon. I like him a lot. But with KJ, is there something about him? Do you think that maybe he could end up being the best runner on this team?
He definitely brings that running dimension to the quarterback spot. That Felipe Franks, did some running last season, but that really wasn't his forte. He was a drop back passer with a great arm and threw deep. And KJ Jefferson brings probably a more diverse, skill set to the position. Remains to be seen if he can pass as well as Felipe did. That'd be great for Arkansas if he could. But he definitely is a guy that can, not just move the pocket, but be a guy that can run for a lot of yards and touchdowns. And but I'd be surprised as long as Smith is healthy, I'd be surprised he's not the leading rusher, because one thing about college stats, the sacks figure into rushing stats too. And I'm not saying that KJ Jefferson is going to sack a whole lot. He's going to be hard to bring down because how big he's gotten, but I would expect Smith to be the leading rusher as long as he stays healthy.
Bob, earlier today it was released that 6 Arkansas players have been shortlisted for the 2022 Reese's Senior Bowl. How important are those postseason bowls? I mean, you have the Senior Bowl. Is the North-South Bowl still a thing? The Shriner Bowl, East-West? How important are those things for guys to improve their draft stock, or are they just more of a fun little things that college players get to do?
I think the Senior Bowl, that's by far the number 1 bowl. I think the NFL scouts and personnel people have a lot to do with who gets selected. Basically, these are the guys we want to see. We want to see these offensive linemen going at these defensive linemen. We want to see these cornerbacks covering these receivers. We want to see these quarterbacks throwing to these guys. And really with the Senior Bowl, I mean, they have the game and that matters, but it's really that week of practice. The players go down there a full week ahead of time, and they're, I guess they call it the whole meat market thing, where they're measuring the quarterback's size of their hands. And is this guy really this height? And, is this guy, what's this guy's weight? And, what's his body fat? All these things. And then they have the practices with all the scouts and GMs and coaches and that watch. And a lot of the NFL people honestly leave. They can watch the game on TV or get a taste of it, but what they really are there to see are those practices. So the Senior Bowl, that's a really big deal. Now, of course, a lot of the underclass, it's the Senior Bowl, so like Traylon Burks, for example, would not be eligible for it because he's a junior, but he'll probably be a high NFL draft pick. And really, if guys are sure to be in top draft picks, a lot of the agents are going to say, look, you don't need to go there. You could get hurt. You could have a bad week for some reason. But for guys that want to, really try to climb or raise their draft stock, it's a really big deal. And they have other bowls. I think there's an NFL Players Association bowl, East-West game, always used to be out at Stanford, I think, and it's got moved around some. There's 3 or 4 others, but the Senior Bowl really is the biggest one by far. And that's, if you get to go to the Senior Bowl, that's a really big deal, to me anyway.
We're speaking earlier about second years for recent Arkansas head football coaches, and that's not getting into Chad Morris. It's more getting into Bobby Petrino and Brett Bielema. There was a step forward in their second years. In Bielema's case, he got a contract extension. Petrino, the third year is where things really started to take off, and Bielema never obviously got to that level, kind of petered out, and you could start seeing that the fourth season. But you could point to wins and losses, both of those seasons. Even if you didn't watch the games, you could just look at a box score, look at the end of the season stats, and say more wins in the second season than last year. Now, I know you're playing more games this year. It does involve non-conference games, so I'll just go by conference wins. You could end up with 3 again this year, and still, I think it may end up being obvious that the program perhaps took a step forward at that point.
Yeah, I expect Arkansas to be better. I mean, they got all those seniors back. Sam Pittman and his staff did a great job of, re-recruiting those guys, however you want to put it. And I think, players made smart decisions. If you're going to be a first or second round pick, you probably don't come back. But if you're going to be a mid-round pick or maybe you're slated as a free agent, then why wouldn't you want to come back? I mean, if you enjoyed the experience last year, when the program took a big step forward, I think won 3 SEC games after being 0-16 the previous 2 years, and I guess 1 in 23 the last 3 years. So they tripled their SEC wins from the 3 years combined. So I think having all the older guys they do, especially in the offensive line, they have some good grad transfers. So yeah, I think Arkansas is definitely going to be better. But like I've said repeatedly, my whole thing with Arkansas's record is, boy, that's a tough schedule. 6 teams in the coaches poll that they have to play now. That doesn't mean all those teams are going to be ranked at the end of the year too. But that's a tough schedule, probably the toughest in the country. Arkansas always seems to play the toughest in the country because they're in the SEC West.
Yeah, it does make it for a pretty hard schedule right off the front. It doesn't really matter who you schedule non-conference. It's already going to be one of the toughest schedules in the country when you play in the SEC West. Bob, Phil put this on a rundown. We haven't had a chance to really get into it, but I think I'd like to get your opinion on it and how hyped Traylon Burks' season is this year with all the watch lists that he's been put on. You just talked about how he's going to more than likely be a very high draft pick. Who was the last Razorback to come into a season this hyped?
Oh gosh, just off the top of my head, I see Jared McFadden and Felix Jones back in going into the 2007 season. Hunter Henry, obviously everybody knew he was going to be really good, but Hunter ended up being a second round draft pick, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I'd have to say for preseason hype that you probably have to go back to the McFadden Jones days. I might be able to study that more, but just off the top of my head, though, those are the guys that come to mind.
It's tough to live up to hype like that.
Yeah, it is.
It really is. When I read about
and he's not being projected as he's not the Heisman, runner-up coming back, but pretty much everybody's mock draft has him as a first-round draft pick, and a lot of people say he's the best receiver in the SEC. So. And there may be some guys in the interim between McFadden and Jones and Burks that I'm missing. I'm just off the top of my head. That's it comes to mind right away.
We focus so much on you got to get a good second receiver, third option, and that's obviously true. Burks is going to get double teamed. I think he can beat some double teams. I mean, the more I read about him going hog hunting with a knife, that he chases these things down and attacks them with a knife. And I'm thinking to myself, as crazy as that sounds, and dangerous probably because these are feral hogs, I mean, that's pretty good practice for going after a jump ball against a couple of quarterbacks if you're going after a feral hog, for crying out loud. I think Burks can beat some of these double teams.
Well, he's got a lot of size and strength. Those are really his two biggest attributes, I'd say, as a receiver, and why he'd be so coveted by the pros. And he's fast, too, but, he's not Bob Hayes, maybe, but, you see him winning a lot of jump balls, as they say, the 50-50 balls. And, but, yeah, it will be important. Davion Warren is back practicing, and, Sam Pittman's praised him a lot. The tight ends are going to get the ball. The guys get the ball out of the backfield. The fact that Jefferson's a running threat, too. But, yeah, Burks, he's going to be a hard guy to stop, without a doubt, no matter how many people you put on him.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the offensive side of the ball, but with today being the first day for full pads, that's really where you get to see the defensive players really come into their own. Because, heck, I can see Treylon Burks catch just as well in T-shirt as I can in the pads. I can't see what a linebacker or a safety, how hard they hit in T-shirts as I can in pads. So who's somebody that you're going to really keep an eye on today and the next couple of days leading up to the first scrimmage in pads on the defensive side?
Oh, well, obviously they can't hit the quarterback. They can't hit the running backs. But, when they put the pads on, it's probably when you really see, the offensive lineman, the defensive lineman get to mix it up more. I mean, they do contact with shoulder pads, but you obviously don't want to get anybody hurt and everything. But I guess Ridgeway, the transfer from Illinois State, he seems like he's been doing well in camp. And, he's a guy who was heavily recruited. You kind of wonder, how do you end up in Illinois State? He must have just been like Deacon Jones or something there, but Merlin Olsen or whatever, Willie Davis, show my age there, I guess. But he's a guy I'd like to see going up against some of these veteran offensive linemen Arkansas's got. And the Mizzou transfers, Trey Williams, Marco they'd say their guys obviously have played in the SEC, and they went against Arkansas last year when Arkansas played Missouri. But some of those new, the offensive defensive line, I think that's the thing you always anticipate at full pads.
Bob, one thing left. We'll let you go. Field of Dreams game tonight. Have you ever visited Dyersville, Field of Dreams?
I have not. That's something I'd like to do. I remember when that movie came out and going and seeing it, and pretty emotional there at the end when Kevin Costner realizes that's his dad and all that. It's a 30-year-old movie, so I hope I'm not giving anything away with the ending. But, I think that's very cool that they're playing. I've seen photos where they got like a barn as a scoreboard and, some stands. It's obviously not, Wrigley Field or something, but it's pretty cool. And it's just nice to think that all these years later that movie hasn't faded from people's consciousness. Hopefully younger people will watch it. And, you can argue Bull Durham, maybe it was a better movie and different baseball movie. It was a great movie on a lot of levels, I thought. Obviously, it's more than just about baseball. And I really have to see if this is going to be an annual thing, but they obviously went to a lot of work to level the ground to put that statement. You hope it's something that, Little League teams can go by there in the summer, make a big deal out of it. If you ever go to Cooperstown, there's always a ton of Little League teams playing there in the summer. It's a great turf for the kids, obviously. But, that's upstate New York and wonderful place, but it's a little harder to get to. And Iowa's in the Midwest, so you can come there a little easier, maybe mileage-wise from the east or the west. So, hopefully they'll utilize that field quite a bit for different things and then play a major league game there every summer. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it really would. Bob, appreciate you, man, and definitely go take a look at it. It's been 22 years since I visited, and I think it looks a lot different now. Bob Holt from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Halftime brought to you by our friends at Pradco Outdoor Fishing. Whether you're fishing a jetty on the Arkansas River or you're working around laydowns at Beaver, Washita, or Table Rock, the Hedden Super Spook Jr. is the top water bait to call up summer bass. The Super Spook Jr. is a smaller version of the world's most famous topwater lure. It's the original walk the dog lure. The Spook has been tricking big bass for almost 100 years. Available at Walmart, Bass Pro Shops, Academy, LureNet.com, and tackle shops everywhere. The Hedon Super Spook Jr. Number at halftime's 877-377-6963. Yeah, Drew, you could argue, as Bob said, that Bull Durham is a better movie than Field of Dreams.
You could.
We've already done that, though. More halftime next.